avidly,
Mark left.
really avidly watching.
Because of my dad.
Ang cute naman niya.
So parang bigla siya nakiusap sa akin. Eh, sabi ko, alis na ako ng Korea.
Tonight's big stories: President Bongbong Marcos returns from the ASEAN summit bearing a prospective rice export deal and a signed free trade agreement. He also meets with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Malacanang.
Gilas Pilipinas begins its Asian Games preparation with Coach Tim Cone at the helm. But first, what went wrong in this World Cup? We'll put that question to Coach Reyes later in the program.
We'll also be speaking with the Senate's Pinay in Action, Pia Cayetano, who will be joining us live in studio to discuss sports and education and what we need to do to get better.
Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Okay, kicking off this Friday night for President Bongbong Marcos back in Manila, fresh from the 43rd ASEAN Summit in Indonesia. Aside from raising maritime and other security concerns in that summit, President Marcos also brought home the following. Okay, so we've talked about the offer from Vietnam for a 5-year rice export deal, which, if it comes into fruition, would be a big help for the country's supply. Indonesian firms have also pledged $22 million in investments for the Philippines in the areas of animal health and technology. Under these commitments, the Philippines could have access to bird flu vaccines and set up additional digital infrastructure. The Philippines also signed a free trade agreement with South Korea, which had been in the works since August.
The FTA will strengthen our bilateral trade and investment relations with the Republic of Korea, especially as it generates jobs and contributes to the Philippines' value proposition as an ideal regional hub for smart and sustainable investments.
All right, so now we have more clarity on that G2G rice deal with Vietnam.
A little
5
bit
years.
more clarity, but I think they still have to work out the actual fine details, I mean.
But I'm happy enough to hear about the 5-year span because that should give us enough time to prepare and get things rolling. You're
Improve
laughing.
our yield.
Yes, exactly.
Everyone says about all of these economists that we talk to, they say the answer to the rice problem is improve the yield, but how do you get there, right? It takes a long time.
That's true. At least we're looking long-term now. But interesting pledges also from Indonesia here. There's a PT Vaksindo Satwa Nusantara planning to invest $2 million as it works with Univet Nutrition and Animal Healthcare Company Philippines on veterinary vaccines and animal health. There's also an investment on the first metaverse company in Indonesia by them, and another involving digital connectivity and improving that in the country. Pero ito sa South Korea.
Mas
Oh
exciting.
yes.
Mas exciting.
Oh yes.
Kasi in exchange for
Our
more
pineapples and
vehicles,
bananas.
Oo,
Yeah.
our pineapples and bananas, we will be getting more vehicles and auto parts. Diba? So, gano'n yung kalaki yung value ng ating mga
Amongst other
tropical
things.
fruits, right?
Yes, right. So it's about opening up borders on both
Free
sides.
trade agreement.
And considering
with South
how crazy about K-drama and K-pop this country is, you can imagine, right? All the new things that South Korean makeup, for
That's
instance,
true.
right?
Skincare,
Less tariffs,
skincare,
skincare.
Other
Exactly.
products,
Fashion.
facial,
Oo.
fashion.
And
all of
food.
all of these hopefully being
Ah,
worked
okay,
out
I'm so
in the free
excited.
trade
I'm going
agreement.
to Korea next week.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
So
So,
she
you don't
will
need
be
to hoard.
But I will check on the products that we can import with a free trade agreement.
Then you can make suggestions
That
to
is
the
the
president.
purpose of my trip. Well, after the ASEAN, may high-level meeting na kaagad si PBBM. He met with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Malacanang today. The two signed a strategic partnership agreement, which is a step up from where it was previously and would involve annual meetings between defense ministers. Australia will also provide new work and holiday visas and more scholarship opportunities for Filipinos. The Land Down Under is also providing the Philippines with a $4 million grant for soil research.
What other things can we expect from the recently concluded ASEAN Summit in Jakarta? Well, let's ask our Malacanang correspondent, Maricel Halili, who was there for this trip. Mase, what do you have?
Reg, like what we have been reporting, it was a jam-packed ASEAN summit for President Bongbong Marcos. And aside from the whole that you have mentioned, the private sector delegation also got busy on the sidelines. Our private sector advisory council, led by Joey Concepcion, signed several MOUs with ASEAN business counterparts in the areas of agriculture and small business development. The Trade Department said this covers commodities like rice, corn, fruits, and vegetables. Now, back to President Marcos, he reaffirmed the Philippines' readiness to chair the ASEAN and to host the summit in 2026. So we'll be taking a look at all the preparations for this in 3 years' time. Reg?
Thanks so much for the update, Maricel Halili.
All right, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news on a Friday night.
You
but here
like being the bearer of bad news. I'm kidding, I'm
That's
kidding.
you. All right, we have a double whammy coming up because food prices have been increasing. And alongside that, the country's jobless rates and debt levels also climbing. Let's start off with that unemployment rate hitting 4.8% in July, higher than the 4.5% recorded in June. What this means is some 2.27 million Filipinos went jobless in July. That's actually a slight improvement from the 2.3 million in June. But take note that the lower absolute number is due to the fact that the labor force also contracted in July, with almost 1.8 million Filipinos shifting to quote-unquote household duties, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. As for underemployment, the rate jumped to 15.9% from 12% in June, which is equivalent to 7.1 million Filipinos. Underemployment refers to workers who are not being maximized or who want to work more hours but cannot find jobs. The subsectors that saw the most decline in employed workers were the wholesale and retail trade and repair of motor vehicles. This was followed by the agriculture and forestry sector. PSA says this could be attributed to recent typhoons. Now, fresh data today also showed the country's debt level soaring to 14.24 trillion pesos as of July. That is much higher than 96 billion pesos, or higher by 96 billion pesos than in June, as new domestic borrowings again exceeded debt payments. Domestic borrowings made up 68.9% of the total, while 31.1% were foreign borrowings.
Well, here's another big news today. It isn't resignation, it isn't termination, but looks like our ASEC Finance Undersecretary has found the word. Turns out there had been pressure to remove her, Shelo Magno, from the DOF. Magno shared the official document from Malacanang, which indicated that her tenure had expired, so its expiration. The document was addressed to Finance Secretary Ben Jokno and was signed by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin. It said that the expiration of Magno's tenure shall take effect immediately. Magno captioned her post saying, "May nanalo na, expiration pala ang tamang term." It was just yesterday when news broke that she was forced to resign for allegedly throwing shade on the price ceiling on rice. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin confirmed in a statement that it was Magno's post on social media that led to this termination. Bersamin said Magno had always been against the policies of the Marcos administration. ES Bersamin adds that while anyone has the right to free speech, it will be counterintuitive to have someone in the administration who is clearly set on maligning it. Strong words.
Oh, nga. expiration.
Kaya,
That's
It's
weird
not a word
because,
you use on people normally.
kaya,
Right?
Pag food lang siya.
Kaya
Tsaka
nga eh.
parang, isn't it that cabinet secretaries are co-terminus or they serve at the pleasure of the president? So there are no fixed...
Even USEX, that's right.
baka nga ibig sabihin, hindi ni-renew. Nag-expire yung contract. Well, let's take a look into that. But up next, it's the finals weekend of the 2023 FIBA World Cup, and what an eventful past 2 weeks it has been. Tonight, we'll be speaking to the man who steered Gilas Pilipinas through this tournament, none other than Coach Reyes himself. You don't want to miss this. Keep it here. You are still watching the big story here on One News. As Tim Cone, the PBA's winningest coach, gets ready to lead Gilas Pilipinas in the upcoming Asian Games, he admitted that he first had to seek the blessing of Coach Reyes. Cone was Reyes' deputy during Gilas' campaign for the FIBA World Cup. Reyes, meanwhile, said that he has long been persuading Cone to take over the role from him, saying that he is, quote, the best man for the job. With only little time to spare before the Asian Games, Cone and the rest of the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas are rushing to form a 12-man lineup capable of competing against the top Asian nations.
Okay, so we've been trying to get this man over the big story for quite some time now, and finally he is here. We have with us live via Zoom Coach Reyes. Good evening, Coach. Thanks for joining us. Kamusta?
Good evening, ladies.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
I hope you're having a good day today, hey?
Coach,
Ano,
kamusta
Yup,
po kayo?
yung iti ni Coach Chot, no?
Hindi,
Relax
yung,
na relax.
Gusto ko yung t-shirt niya, hindi
Oo nga,
nagbabago yan.
making
ng
a
ano
statement right away.
Eh. Puso.
Puso.
Kamusta
Had a nice
po kayo?
round of golf today, so yeah, I had a good day.
Buti ka pa ko.
Coach, the first thing I wanted to find out from you is at what point did you decide to resign? Because I watched your last press con for the FIBA World Cup. And it didn't strike, this is when you announced that you were stepping aside in your words, and it didn't strike me then that you had come into it prepared to make an announcement, or did you? At what point did you say, I've had enough?
After the game against South Sudan, when we lost that game, we had basically lost the chance to be the best placed Asian team for the outright Olympic qualifying slot. So that was when I decided, whatever happens in the last game against China, that I was going to step down.
Pero hindi mo rin sinabi sa team, no?
No, I didn't want to distract them because there was still a game that needed to be played. I messaged President Al Panlilio and Chairman Ricky Vargas about it. But other than that, wala ako iba sinabi.
What would be the biggest reason, Coach Chot, that made you resign? There have been plenty of not nice things that have been addressed towards you all over my timeline. And we had Kiefer Avena here. We spoke to him and he said, even daw si Jordan Clarkson nagulat, bakit nila tayo binubu dito sa Pilipinas? Nakakadismaya ba yun? And how big of a factor did all that negativity play in your resignation, your decision?
But the main reason why I decided to step down was because I was given a mandate a result that I had to achieve, and we failed. We were not able to achieve that. Yes, we played better. We improved on our standing from the last two times, the last two World Cup stints. A very big jump in performance for this team. But in the end, we were given a mandate and we did not achieve that. And for me, it is incumbent upon any leader when you take on a job to be accountable, to deliver the results for which you were hired to do. And so we did not achieve that. The buck stops with me. I take full accountability. I blame no one. I point no fingers. So it was it was time for me to step down.
Coach, why now and not why wait until after the Asian Games? It's just 2 weeks away. It's not much more, kumbaga, pwede mong tiisin, habaan yung pagtitiis, konti na lang.
Masyado na ang distraction to the players. I could already see the effect because it got really, really bad after we lost to Italy. Number 10 team in the world. We lost by 7 points. We played with them right to the end. And still the backlash was very, very negative. I'm not on social media. I'm not on Facebook or Twitter. So I was insulated from all of that. But of course, people around me and the others around the program and the team were giving me those reports. And it was already affecting the players.
Coach, ano masasabi niyo?
you said,
Pati ano,
even si Kiefer, sinabi niya, di ba, when the people don't realize that when they're booing me at the start of the game, it affects the players. I mean, you're a player, Gretchen. You know that at the start. If you get that, di ba, it really will affect the performance of the players. So I thought it's if it's already at the point where it's affecting the players, it's not good.
Coach, ano pong masasabi niyo? Pati yung damit po ninyo, pinupuntirya ng netizens?
Yeah, at least alam ko na ano talaga yon. It has nothing to do with the performance. It's just really, I guess, personal attacks. So wala na, even if we qualified, meron pa rin magrereklamo at meron pa rin pupunay, di ba? So it's just really the keyboard warriors, the haters out there. We cannot please everyone. That's something that I long have learned to live with.
Coach, after more than 20 years of coaching the national team, is this final? Are you retiring from the Philippine team? Or if you get called back up again, will you answer the call of duty?
Of course, mahirap naman magsalita ng tapos, right? But at this point in time, yes. That's it. I mean, I think I have served long enough. Like you said, it's been long 20 years already. I've already stepped down several times from this position. But it just keeps being offered back to me. I never applied for this job. I never volunteered for this job. But like I always say in my leadership workshops and business workshops, part of knowing when to enter a business is knowing when to get out of a business. So I think it's time to get out.
Coach, I think it's great that you're taking accountability as the head coach, but also, taking a look back at the past years preparing for this World Cup. What are some of the lessons, like breaking this down into pieces that you would see lessons learned and passing it on to the next team? Ano po ba yung, kumbaga, saan po ba tayo nagkulang? Where were we lacking this time?
Remember, you were one of the last interviews I had before the World Cup, right? I was here before you ladies as well, and we were already worried because we had a really good preparation, a really good program put in place. For the first time, players were made available. That was not an issue, except we got hit by all these injuries, and we couldn't plan and we couldn't prepare for that. And I was telling everyone at the start. We would have preferred that Jordan Clarkson arrive earlier than he could because arriving and having 2 weeks preparation is just not enough. And it was not only Jordan, even Kai Soto, even the injury to Scotty Thompson. So we were able to practice as a full team, 12-man lineup, complete team, only on August 18, 1 week, 7 days before our first game. Yung Team USA nga, August 3, nagpa-practice na. USA na yon, the pinakamalakas na team. Tayo, 1 week lang tayo nabuo before the opening. And so, I don't know what lesson we can learn from that, except to maybe increase the number of available naturalized players, increase even the pool some more, but to really, and also to really insist on a certain drop dead date. But remember, we lost the flexibility to make a decision on our naturalized player because even Justin Brownlee went down with an injury on July 24. So we lost that flexibility, and we were trying our best to find ways to mitigate Jordan Clarkson's late arrival. We were planning to find a way to, kami na lang ang pupunta sa US. We'll find a way to train with him. Kung di siya makapunta dito, kami na ang pupunta doon. But we just couldn't get the logistics in time, the
But
visas
Coach,
and all of that.
if I could just point out something, because the other teams also didn't have much time to get themselves together, to come together, right? You look at the countries that have a lot of NBA players, they also had about, 2 weeks to come together as a team, right? And then the other point is that it's not just the chemistry that was a little bit off with Gilas, it was also the shooting, right? So there's been a lot of criticism on that point. What would you have to say to that?
No, like I said, the US team with all the NBA players, they were the latest to start. That was August 3. So that's 22 days, and we got together as a complete team only on August 18. So the US, they can afford to do that because they have a lot of NBA players. Sa atin, we were not able to do that because Jordan had other personal issues that he had to take care of before leaving. So that's the first, that's not in answer to your first point. The second point, the shooting, correct. We were not able to make our shots. But I was not the one shooting the ball.
Fair enough, Coach. Coach, balikan ko lang tong...
Hindi naman ako yung
That's a
committee.
very fair point.
I take your point. Very fair. Okay.
But
Coach, sabi-
Regina, just allow me to. Yes, the chemistry was not there. We were turning the ball over. We were not shooting the ball well, but we competed in every game that we played. We were right there, and we fought, and we gave ourselves a chance to win in every game, playing against these world-class teams. So I think there is a lot to be proud of and a lot to celebrate in those in that sense. That's why I say we played much better than we did in 2014 and 2019. We just did not achieve the goal that was set before us. Remember, we had a 1 in 6 chance. There were 6 other Asian teams. So we had a 1 in 6 chance. We had a 17% chance. If you were a betting person, would you put your money on Gilas to make it to the second round to the Olympics with a 17% chance?
Coach, meron din po nagsasabi
It was
na
not like we were a shoe-in to make that to get that slot.
Coach, meron din po nagpupuna. Sinabi po, play Jordan Clarkson lang daw po. Isolation. Siya lang daw, kumbaga, give the ball to Jordan Clarkson and that's it. What would you have to say to that?
Correct. That's a very valid. Observation. And my reply is, if we had 2 more weeks with Jordan, we would have been able to resolve that. But that's the problem. We had 10 practices with him. 10 practices. You're an athlete. Gretchen, you're on the Philippine team. You're going to play. Huwag niyo nang isipin ang Brazil or Argentina. Kakalabanin niyo Thailand on 10 days.
Coach,
On 10 days practice. Then you will see how difficult that situation is.
is it political will that's needed?
What's that?
Is it political will that's needed to get the players here early? I mean, the likes of Jordan Clarkson, Kai Soto. We were able to get MVP, RSA on board to be able to open up the availability of players. But talk to us about that challenge of getting players like the both of them come here early to the Philippines.
We planned for that. In case Jordan is not able to come in early, we had Justin Brownlee. Remember, di ba? We had Justin Brownlee. He was with us in all of the training. The problem is, na-injured din siya.
Oo. Nabanggit nyo nga yun, Coach, the last time we talked to you. But
Sorry, I just want to clarify one thing. How would more time with Jordan have fixed the problem of that one offense, of one playbook? Because people are also saying that the other teams were
I would,
able to read
yeah.
that playbook quite easily, right?
No, it was hard for us to adjust because of the lack of time playing together. If you notice, in our final tune-up series in China, nobody was complaining about the offense. In fact, people were saying, wow, ang ganda ng offense. The ball was moving very well. The offense was running very smoothly. In our tune-up in China, before Jordan Clarkson came. And again, I'm not pointing fingers to Jordan. He did everything he could. I tip my hat to him. He really tried everything in his power. It was just not an ideal scenario to just have somebody come in and 10 days before against very, very good competition. I mean, that's what they did to Luka Doncic, right? And when the Germany and the other teams were double teaming Luka Doncic, forcing the ball out of his hands, Luka Doncic wasn't able to solve it either. They also fell by the wayside. Same thing with Shea Gilgeous Alexander today. I mean, when teams are able to gang up on a player, you really have to be able to do other things, and the other players have to be able to step up.
All right.
And that was our problem. We were not able to get enough time to be able to get to that situation.
All right, Coach, balikan ko lang yung resignation nyo or in your words, stepping down. How much of a stepping down is this really? Of course, we know you worked so closely with Coach Tim. Now, he will be taking the team to the Asiad. Will you be helping him some? Is this a total hands-off situation for you? Or will you be available on call to help? Ano yung level no, nung separation mo from the team or yung stepping down ninyo?
Yeah, Tim knows that he can call me for anything. If he just needs somebody to bounce ideas off, if he just needs to talk about anything at all. Not only to Tim, but as well to the federation. I gave my inputs. There was a meeting a couple of days ago. I gave my inputs on not only who we're going to play in the first round, but also who our potential opponents are in the next round here in the Asian Games, and so on and so forth. I'm willing to continue helping. I don't need the title. I don't need any official designation in any manner or in any capacity. I'm very willing to help out.
Why is Coach Tim Cone the best man for the job?
Because he is already with the players. It's not like he's a new face coming in with the majority of the players who were training already with us. Having Justin Brownlee, Scotty Thompson, Japet, Junmar, all of those guys who are continuing to be part of the team. Chris Newsom, Roger Pogoy, they're all already very familiar with Tim and vice versa. So it's not if we get another new person, again, they will face that same problem that we have 2 weeks before the tournament. Completely new everything. So at least with Tim, he's coming in with a lot of familiarity because he's working with guys for the past year already. More than 1 year na kami magkakasama eh. So it's just a matter of...
Yeah, continuity, no, Coach? Coach, what's next for you apart from golf and rest and relaxation and some stress-free nights? Are you gonna go back to coaching the Tropang Giga in the PBA?
Yeah, that's the plan. Coach Jojo Lastimosa will start the tournament and we'll see. There's no definite timeline yet for my actual return. But I already started attending talk and text practice yesterday. And we will just continue going through that. But then I will have to take a break at the end of the month. I have been granted a 15-day break by the Federation and by Talk and Text Management. So I will take the advantage of that break and then hindi ko na schedule earlier because we thought tuloy-tuloy ito all the way to the Asian Games, right? So that's
Coach,
the immediate plan.
Coach, sorry to interject. We're running out of time, but just before we go, one last question. You famously said, "Judge me by the World Cup." Now that it's over, How would you judge yourself?
We did not achieve what we set out to do, what we were hired to do. We uh, we improved on the performance of the previous teams, but we were not able to achieve what we were hired, or what our mandate was. We were not able to make it to the Olympics outright. We were able to get a slot in the Olympic qualifying tournament. That's good, but the objective was to qualify for the Olympics outright. We were not able to achieve that, and because of that, I stepped down.
But as you said, you did fight every game, fight every battle, and you did put everything that you have out there. So we do also thank you for your, service. Thank you for joining us tonight. That was Coach Chot Reyes.
We're going to pause for a quick break, but our next guest knows a thing or two about basketball too, among other sports. We will be sitting down with a chat with Senator Pia Cayetano right here in the studio when we return. Keep it here on The Big Story. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
If Gretchen is our woman in action here on Signal TV, o diba? The Senate also has its own Pinay in action. Our next guest tonight is the chair of the Senate Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking, among other hats that she wears. Let's welcome her to the show, Senator Pia Cayetano.
Hello.
Sen, thank you so much for coming all this way tonight on a big game night too.
I've always been curious about the Pinay in action. Kasi nung naisip ko yung woman in action, parang nakita ko sabay.
Pinay-Reyes ka pala ni
Hindi.
Gretchen.
Actually,
Inspired.
meron na sila.
Okay.
Nauna ata sila eh. Pero parang di ko nakita. Nakita ko lang nung after na i-launch. But how did you think of Pinay in
Because
action?
it's my name, di ba?
Oh, yeah.
So that's it. That's it. Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
So, Gretchen, ano ka?
Ano nga ba?
WIA.
Okay.
Wonder Woman.
Wia.
Idol ko si Wonder
Anyway,
Woman.
first things first, I don't think many people know that you were actually part of the group that lobbied for the hosting, for the
Yeah.
Philippines hosting the
Yeah.
FIBA World Cup.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of joining MVP and the basketball.
You even went to Switzerland
Twice.
to speak to FIBA officials. That's right. I don't think a
yeah.
lot of people know that.
Yeah.
Now that it's almost over, what did you think of our hosting? What did you think of the whole
Well,
thing?
Filipinos are always good hosts, no? I remember one of the requirements was that it's accessible for the players, and I'm like, uh-oh, yung traffic, 'cause they know they know about the traffic. But I think we've been okay. I mean, I just came from the FIFA also,
Oo nga,
the
sa
football,
New Zealand.
and of course, medyo malayo talaga yung walang traffic situation yung New Zealand and yung Australia. But you know, I think we make up with the way we take care of our guests. But I am disappointed about how Filipinos have to boo. I think that goes against the grain. Like we're so hospitable, maalalahanin at maalagain tayo. Pero ba't naman pag may kalaban, kailangan pa mag-boo, di ba? Maka-point lang yung kalaban, kailangan mag-boo. Sana hindi naman
Binuo yung
ganon.
sarili nating team.
At least binuo pa yung sariling team. Yeah, I know, I was listening to your interview. Ay, ayoko ng ganon.
Your thoughts on our team's performance?
Well, I'm not a techie when it comes to basketball. Other sports pa siguro. I don't follow basketball per se, but I love being there up close, watching the effort. Kasi naman wala kang masabi sa effort, di ba? I can begin to be a little bit technical, but they're not my words. They would be words of my brothers, my
Well,
friends, who are
of course.
techie. So wag na ako. Sa effort, A for effort talaga.
Are you still biking? We know you play paddle. I have attended Zoom rowing classes during the pandemic and I
Yeah.
saw you there. I know you're an avid sportswoman. I think you were a triathlete,
Yeah.
among many other things. Are you still pushing for the state of Philippine sports?
I am, but that's why I actually was in Australia, New Zealand for almost 2 weeks because I felt, well, number one, historic naman talaga for the Philippine women's football team to make it. Our men's team hasn't made it, you know. And I wanted to really see that this is how important sports is for me and for how I think it can shape our nation. So talagang I'm there. But yeah, football is one of them. Whatever sports needs my support, I try. But of course, you have to pick your battles. Hindi ko naman din kaya
Especially
lahat.
women's sports
Yeah.
right now, which is in ascendance.
Super,
right?
super.
Right?
Of
You're
course,
talking about
Heidelin
FIFA,
has raised the
Filipinas,
bar.
Heidelin.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it changes life. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I feel sports democratizes life for people because it's a way for kids to get a good education. It's a way for them to highlight their strengths if they're not necessarily academically inclined. Having said that, may mga athletes na nagiging doktor. So, you know, yung thinking na hindi matalino ang athlete is also not correct. And I actually believe in sports more than I believe in ROTC.
The budget of
point.
PSC has been cut by a tremendous amount for 2024. What's the story
No,
behind
the
that?
story there is very simple. No? So, ano lang, tip lang. Every time you see cuts, there's always a reason. Sometimes, a reason that I can't accept, you know, and ilalaban ko yan. But many times there is a practical reason. And one of the main reasons is because a lot of money went into FIBA for this year. See? So, because we're hosting.
Doon napunta yun.
A lot, a big chunk. A big chunk went to FIBA. And I'm not sure about the rest. And I have to admit, I haven't studied it per se, but I'm pretty sure that's one reason. But the sports budget has never been bigger than it is nowadays with my colleagues who are equally supportive as I am. So, I mean, it's still in the right direction. Pero I chair kasi the I'm senior vice chair for the Committee on Finance. So for 5 years, I've chaired the budget hearings of DepEd and DOH and
Yes.
PhilHealth. So medyo mabigat. So that's my focus. But of course, I dabble in sports as well, and
So magiging okay naman tayo for 2024
Yeah,
Paris Olympics.
ay, nako.
No problem.
For sure.
Sakto
for
Sen, no?
sure.
Kasi usap-usapan rin ngayon. It's always in the headlines. We've been talking about it for a week or two now.
Yeah.
The budget cuts on the education
Yeah.
sector. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, actually, again, I've been handling it for 5 years, so nothing shocks me anymore, no? Usually the budget cuts kasi are based on amendments that are made by Congress. So hindi yan naturally sinasama ng DBM when they finalize the budget for the next year. Kailangan na namang ilagay na naman ng Congress, you understand? So what I fight for is, for example, our budget for Doktor para sa Bayan, which is our increase of budget for not just scholarships of doctors, because there's no point in having scholarships for doctors kung wala namang college na kayang mag-absorb ng more med students. And mag-build ka nga ng buildings ng more med schools, wala namang magtuturo. So I have to put together all the pieces of the puzzle. So for the last parang 3 years, laging nakakat yun kasi they consider it a congressional initiative. So cut. But this year, because I spoke to Secretary Amina and I explained na no, this is a law, Doktor para sa Bayan Act, and we need to continually support this kasi walang pondo yung magto-third year, yung magpo-fourth year. So ngayon may base na, which is good. So actually a lot of them are like that because it's the job of DBM, Department of Budget, to see if the fundings that that the congressional initiatives made naman are the most important priorities. Of course, Congress will say, based on the Constitution, that's our job. But then DBM, COA will check na, okay, it's your job, but it wasn't the best decision, so argue kami, and yeah, that's how it works.
You're a graduate of UP Diliman.
Yes, proud
Do you
graduate.
support Secretary Jokno's call to review the free tertiary
Yes,
education?
I left. I made a statement, I think, yesterday. So I said there is merit in the two different, they're not even different actually. There's a position of Secretary of Finance, Jokno, who said na we don't have enough money to support free education. And then there is the statement of CHED chairman, Popoy de Vera, and he was explaining how we've made a lot of, we've been able to change lives by having funding for poor kids who can now go to school. So I thought there's merit in both, no? There's merit in both. Because it's true, who will argue na we have an abundance and limitless funding? No, may limit yung funding. So how do you use the funding to maximize education of our youth? Well, for me, you do that by prioritizing the courses. Kasi there are courses that will directly contribute to nation building. And you know that we have shortages in the healthcare. Not just nurses, not just doctors, pharmacists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, lab technicians, lahat yan shortage.
Is research a part of that? Yesterday we had Dr. Padilla, national scientist natin.
Yes, I know.
Ang
I
research
work
ba,
very
tingin
closely.
mo ba may direct contribution to...
Well, I fund research a lot. I fund a lot of research. So research is very important. We should be, after the pandemic, we should be more aggressive in being sustainable when it comes to manufacturing vaccines. We are
But
capable,
is it
but we have
included
to
in the
do
courses
research.
that you deem merit free tertiary education and should be prioritized?
Wala namang course na research, but
Oo.
in most sciences, there's research involved. So yeah, no, definitely, I'm a big supporter of research. So my point is, we need to prioritize. Naniniwala ako na mas bibigyan mo yung, if you have limited funding, right? Where will you put it? For me, ilagay mo dun sa courses that will directly contribute to nation building.
So parang may triage ng
Yeah, so that's
sectors.
help. And we're already doing that actually, pero kulang nga. And I also want to prioritize those who merit-based scholarship because clearly, ito yung batang nag-aaral talaga. Gusto niyang mag-aral. Siya yung hindi mo papaaralin. Siya yung buhusan mo ng enough funding para pagpasok niya, meron din siyang allowance so he can buy yung gamit niya for the assignments, for the lab. Kasi if you spread it out, konti lang siya.
Do you
But how
agree
do
then
we-
with sorry, Reg, Finance Secretary Diokno's suggestion na magkaroon tayo ng some sort of assessment exam para
Yes, exactly.
identify
That's what I was gonna
natin
ask.
kung sino yung mga deserving na merit scholars. Merit nga.
So I've always supported merit-based scholarship, but there are also courses that don't have to be merit-based naman, ano. Pwede naman open for all, depending on where the need is. Like, you can go to whether it's university or even TESDA na hindi naman ka-academic scholar, pero may pangangailangan yung sector na yon. I'm sure you hear, like, Canada, Australia, alaki ng sweldo ng ano,
Mga machine operators, mga
machine,
ganyan.
hindi, tsaka yung, ang tawag doon, tubero.
Commerce,
Tubero,
construction workers, electricians.
like, di ba nga,
Construction.
I was in FIFA, kinikwento sa akin ng mga Filipino, laki ng sweldo ng construction worker. And one of our biggest problems is, we have a very low-skilled construction worker. We have to elevate them so they can also earn more and we can all be more productive. So, yes to all of that. There's nothing wrong. Actually, yung sa education, and sometimes it's controversial, but for me, our job requires that we have the courage to talk about controversial topics. Hindi ako naniniwala na, ay, wag natin pag-usapan kasi re-electionist ka. No, people should have the opportunity to hear different points of view. So, for example, in education, I said, aralin nyo yung mga colleges na hindi man lang makapag-graduate ng majority ng students nila. Di para namang ninakawan lang nila yung pera ng mga magulang, right? I mean, kung hindi nila mag-graduate yung, what are you gonna do without your teacher's degree? It's still a degree, with a degree, but you can't pass the board. So, not that I want to impose another exam on these kids, but I'm like, dapat ba, iniisip ko rin, dapat ba sophomore i-assess? Kasi if you don't have the aptitude, and naisip ko rin yan for nursing, if you don't have the aptitude, baka naman mas okay na dun ka pala sa communications, sa hotel and restaurant. There's
So,
nothing
kumbaga,
wrong
habang
with those.
maaga pa, at least
Oo,
makakalipat ka
Pero
sa
may
ibang
Kasi
feedback.
ang dami nating hindi nag-board pass ng nursing.
Senator, may feedback din kasi na hindi masyadong inclusive itong free tertiary education. Kasi yung, kumbaga, hindi naman enough yung nutrition, hindi sila nakakaabot talaga ng kolehiyo. So, medyo mas nasa middle class yung nakakatapak sa
Precisely.
sa college. So,
Yes.
so what do you think about that?
That definitely would be true in certain cases. Like, it's the same story with PhilHealth maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was a survey that showed the hospitals with the biggest reimbursement from PhilHealth were all private hospitals. So that meant, this is 10 years ago, not now, that meant na yung mahihirap, they don't even bother. Kasi ang feeling talaga nila,
Hindi nila ma-afford.
Hindi naman kami, di ba? But now kasi, we have a no balance billing, which means, kailangan i-absorb talaga yan lahat. Hindi lahat ng sakit, pero kung identified yung sakit mo dun sa listahan, no balance yun. So, ganun din yan sa education. Parang, before naging free ang university education, yung free tertiary education, my brother Alan and I passed a bill which was called, it's a law na, it's called estudyante sa bayan, scholar ng bayan. Scholar ng bayan, sa dami hindi ko na maalala. Scholar ng bayan, we passed that, and that is all the top 10 graduate get a free tuition, free allowance, kasi nga, precisely, di ba, top 10 ka, kahit na kung anong bundok, you know, kung anong lupalop ka galing sa Pilipinas, alagaan ka namin para you have the means. Kasi otherwise, pagtugtungan naman nila ng university, yung kaklase nila may laptop, may pang-lab, sila wala, walang pamasahe,
Sen,
walang pangkain.
Bottom line though, as far as free college tuition is concerned, of course, there's a law, universal access to quality tertiary education. If the issue grows bigger, tapos there's calls to repeal the law, will you support it?
I am always open-minded. I tell all my colleagues, it's our job to be open-minded. Kasi I know the budget, pang 5 taong ko na. If anyone knows the budget more than me, I would say it's probably Senator Sherwin Gatchalian because he's the chairman of the Committee on Education. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee that hears that. So siya lang siguro yung lalamang sa akin doon. And like I said, no, it's I don't like yes or no answers because there is a reason not to repeal it because you don't want to give free education, but you want to ensure that the funding we have, and we keep increasing it, that to be clear, every year it goes up, hindi binabawasan. mabubuo din ng bata yung education niya. But there's not enough time to discuss everything. But a law that we passed many years ago is called ladderized education. It gives the student the opportunity to finish a certification course and leave. So for example, they're thinking of doing that now for nursing, right? It's called clinical associate, tama ba? Clinical associate.
Papa-assist sa actual hospital
Nurse,
settings.
oo. So parang 1 year, kunyari, I don't know how long that course is. Sabi mo ng 1 year yan, o 1.5, whatever. O, tas work muna siya. Tas parang na-inspire ako, gusto ko na mag-nurse, balik ako. Credited yung course ko, and credited yung work ko, and when I come back, I can continue my education. So yun naman yung, hindi naman yung, wala nang libreng education. No, it's more of let's be creative so we can get these kids to finish. And be productive citizens of the country. Because the truth is, and I'll say it, a lot of them get a free education and then they leave. So yes, makikinabang yung pamilya nila. I am happy that their families are now recipients of dollars, of ano ba tawag doon, euros.
Yeah.
But ang
Hindi bumabalik sa
gumastos
Pilipinas.
doon is yung kapitbahay mo, na lahat yon yung tax money nila na pupunta doon. So ang gusto ko naman, prioritize naman natin yung magsistay dito. Yeah, so those are tough political decisions, no? And they have to be discussed, even if
there's an election coming up.
yeah.
Well, speaking of political, Sen, you're on your second term na in Senate?
I'm actually on my third.
Oh, okay.
Kasi I finished two 6-year terms.
Yes, and then this
So
is
this
your
is my
third.
third, yeah.
This is your comeback.
Yeah, in a way.
I wonder if you've thought of 2025. Your name came up in the recent survey by Oculus. Oculus ba yung
Comes up, I'm a senator. I like being a senator.
number
so
4 ka daw on the
I don't
preferred
know. They
senator
always
list?
comes and goes, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. I don't really pay much attention to it.
Fair enough.
Very curious about your thoughts on bike lanes. You're
yeah, well, we
principal
both
sponsor,
bike.
of walkable, bikeable cities.
Yeah.
But several cities have been removing bike lanes, including, I think, Taguig. Kasi may nakita kong, siklista, nag-post siya, hindi lang Taguig, Makati, Pasig, parang Mandaluyong.
Parang hindi naman. I mean, like, if you go to BGC, you'll still
it's
see the
still
bike
there in
lanes there.
BGC.
I think
Pati
many...
sa EDSA may struggle eh.
Yeah.
Parang,
You know,
how do you
yeah,
deal with that?
it is a reality that I think when like MMDA, and I still need to give them a call, when they assess kasi, there's not as many cyclists siguro as there are road motor vehicle users, right? But it doesn't justify removing the bike lanes or for that matter, the walkways and the slow streets, which I'll talk about if we have time. It doesn't justify it because we are trying to make that sustainable shift. So pag tinanggal mo yun, how pa will we make that shift, di ba? I mean, we don't live in a country with great weather, di ba? It's not always nice and cool. Either ang init-init or umuulan. So, ang hirap nga naman maging siklista, but naman there really are efforts. And there's been a latest survey that shows that there's been a huge uptake in cycling. So,
Pero sa EDSA, paano kung isa lang, you're sharing that bike lane between cyclists and motorcycle users, paano kaya yun?
Well,
Ano
in
espasyo?
many countries, the main highways and thoroughfares, wala talagang bike lane. That's not my decision. I'm not touching that. I leave it naman to the transportation experts. I would love to have, pero when you see na yung sobrang traffic, I don't mind because it's what happened in other countries na you reroute the bike lanes, diba? Sometimes it's longer, but maybe it might even be safer for them, might even be more less air pollution. So may options naman. May options naman. But I'm all for retaining. I don't like it. Parang we're going back naman, 'di ba? Parang let's move forward naman.
Okay, Sen, very quickly, since nasa road issues tayo, road rage. Of
I
course,
knew
busy
you
kayo.
were gonna ask about that.
Hindi, kasi
What
ang
was that
dami rin
like?
Yeah.
You're facing that dismissed cop. Diba
And
you
what
did
do
a
you guys
hearing?
plan to do about it? We, of course, heard some views
Well,
in
we
the
had a
Senate
hearing. We had a hearing, and syempre, in the Senate, we all come from different backgrounds. So the chairman, Senator Bato de la Rosa, is handling the issue on a person carrying a weapon and using it not in the way it was. I'm not pro-gun eh. So there are, of course, proponents who believe in responsible gun use. Ako kasi gusto ko no gun, ano. So that issue is being handled separately. My participation in that hearing is really the reality of the life of bikers. Na you're always risking your life when you're out there. And I do say that be responsible then. Kasi I've had bikers who also caused the accidents. Kasi nag-ano sila eh. Naggaganon eh. Nag-ano sila.
Nag-short
Oo.
gewang-gewang.
So sila din. So I'm not talking about this particular case, no? But yun nga, there are trees. And I also shared my own experiences na kinakat ako ng whether it's a jeep or car. Ang dami, truck, nahampas ko na rin yan, nasermonan ko na rin na kaya ba nilang buhayin yung mga anak ko pag namatay ako,
So in
anong
short,
gagawin
lahat tayo,
nila.
no, na nasa kalsada, lahat tayo ay kailangan.
So road sharing yung inaano ko, pinopromote ko. Like I need people to understand yung mga driver. And sabi ko, I feel that may difference naman when I started biking, which is about 20 years ago already. I can't believe it's been 20 years. Na ang feeling talaga ng mga driver noon, kami may-ari ng kalye, hindi kayo. So ang pinopromote ko, no, we are road sharing, di ba? And yung nakabike or yung naglalakad, ganyan lang ang kitid-kitid mo. So ingat naman kayo, di ba? Kasi wala naman kaming
Final
motor.
question before we go. Your new hobby, paddle.
Paddle,
Talk to us about that. There's a
yes.
gym right in front of TV5.
Yes,
What is that sport? What is the difference
Yeah.
between
So,
paddle and
Hottest
pickleball?
sport now.
So paddle is the fastest growing sport in Europe, and it's taking off in many countries. So paddle is like tennis. It's like a mini tennis court. Kasha tatlong paddle court in one tennis court. Pero may glass siya. So think combination, pelota, squash,
and
tennis.
tennis.
But basically, basic rules of tennis. Serve ka ng paside, babalik yung bola, pwede ka mag-volley. Pero pag tinira mo ng dire-diretso, tatama sa wall, out. It's so fun. It's very social. Like my daughters are football players, so they move fast. But they can invite a friend who's not even sporty, and in that hour,
Parang
they'll
ping-pong ba
enjoy.
yan? Ping-pong tennis?
Not really.
Actually, it looks like a big ping pong racket kasi it's solid, so
Yeah.
parang madali siyang tamaan. And you can be as basic and recreational to as competitive as you want to be. Ay, nako. Basta.
So you got
to
addicted.
try that.
You got
What
addicted to
time
it.
is it?
I am. Like when I have conferences abroad, I look for a paddle court. And I train with coaches abroad.
So many people I know are getting into that. We're gonna have to maybe
Come.
challenge you to a game, to a match, whatever you call it.
We have to
for-
practice first.
But for
We
now,
have coaches. We have coaches who can make it easy for you, make it easy and fun.
Okay, we're
Okay,
gonna have to
forward to
leave
that.
it there. Thank
Dito
you
lang
so
yan sa
much.
Mandaluyong, sa tapat ng TV5.
Around the
Yes.
corner, actually. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was
Oh, my
Senator Pia
pleasure.
Cayetano.
My pleasure.
All right, that's it for the show on this Friday night.
Please don't forget to watch the final days of the FIBA World Cup that's happening this weekend. Congratulations to everybody behind the scenes for organizing a
Oh, a
successful,
great
I would say,
hosting, yes.
event. And to our lawmakers for fighting for that hosting. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.